How's it going? So at this moment in time, we're obviously facing a lot of challenges around the way we deliver our content to audiences. Live events, which have been a staple for such a long time, are now effectively being virtualized. And to be quite frank, that's probably not the right approach. What you should be thinking about is content. Content is still king. It should be at the top of the tree, and we should be thinking about how we shape our content to access our audiences in the right way, and then the delivery mechanisms come afterwards. If we start thinking about how we transpose an entire live scenario into a virtual setting, we're going to have some problems from the get-go. So, we've had these kind of technologies available to us for a long time: webcasting, webinars, streaming content via a laptop. But realistically, these are kind of ancient terms now. These are technologies that we shouldn't be thinking of or relying on or going to in 2020, regardless of the type of wider situation we're facing. What we should be looking at is broadcast mediums, filling that screen space with content, using cutaways and live interactions in other spaces that we film, pre-recorded content, designing for device where we take people's gaze away from the screen and put it into devices. These are the type of things that we have at our disposal now, and it's taken this kind of situation to push us in that direction. But in reality, we should be thinking about this anyway, and we should be continuing to place content firmly at the top of the tree when we design these experiences. What we need to be thinking about is the technology that we can use to deploy this in the right way. And quite honestly, when we have these conversations, when we're not in crisis time, a lot of buzzwords tend to come to the forefront of people's minds: virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality. But the fact is, these type of technologies are once again only as good as the content that we're using to deploy them with. If we're designing virtual environments, we can't expect there to be photorealistic scenarios or the same kind of graphical quality that you're going to see in Hollywood movies, especially when you consider the time constraints that we're having to deal with in order to deliver these events or these event substitutes effectively. What we need to start looking at is low poly environments, interactive, colorful spaces that go beyond reality and allow our audiences to engage with things that they wouldn't be able to engage with in a live event scenario. Also, we have to recognize that these individuals who are looking at this content via screens, be it their mobile, be it their laptop, can be distracted quite easily. So we need to control their gaze by moving it where we want to move it. Where are we directing their attention? Are we pushing it to their mobile phones, their tablets? And if we are, can we engage them through augmented reality and other technologies in this space? There are fantastic examples out there in the market, and our audience is becoming more and more familiar with using these technologies every day. In reality, we should be looking at pushing this tech into our wider event planning anyway, after we move out of this crisis period. But right now is the perfect time to start thinking about your strategy for augmented reality and virtual reality and make it happen in these types of spaces that we're experiencing now. Once again, we're using the content to dictate the right type of design for device that we deploy. So when we have conversations with clients about how we make these type of interactions a reality, there's a lot of challenges, barriers, specifically around perception, that we have to get over, really. In reality, it's actually quite easy to do all these things. We have the technology in place in 2020, and in quite a lot of instances, the organizations that we're working with have this technology in place as well. Most organizations that we talk with have at least an intranet. If not, they're on platforms, cloud-based platforms like Office 365. You've got Slack, you've got Yammer, part of the 365 suite as well. Amazing tools like Sway that can make your communications internally kind of comparable to social media channels like Instagram stories and things of this nature. We can spread the burden of requirement of deployment across these channels. So in reality, the technology that's available now internally for us to use and deploy at a moment's notice can actually solve a lot of these problems for us and bear a lot of the technological brunt. As long as we're strategic about it, as long as we look at what we've got available, look at the content and messages we're trying to deploy, and marry those two things together in a really robust strategy, we can make this work for pretty much any budget. We find ourselves in a place where we have to modernise and we have to adapt our delivery methods. The need for communication has never been higher as a result of the situation that we find ourselves in. But there have been a lot of incidents or, kind of signposts that this is the way that we should have been going a while ago. It wasn't our environmental situation that pushed us here. It wasn't the maturation of our audience, becoming more technologically savvy and expecting these kind of interactions. It took COVID-19 for us to start thinking about these solutions in a meaningful way. But what we can do with this type of situation is look at it as an opportunity to future-proof our communications. The main barriers that we've come up against in this space before have been based on infrastructure. The clients that we work with, their infrastructure hasn't been ready to adopt these types of technologies. And in the past, it's taken exceptional circumstances to make these updates business critical. Well, this is business critical right now. It's critical that we modernize our systems and think about all these different factors that are affecting our ability to communicate right now. Solve them now so that we can future-proof our communications for the next 10, 15, 20, or even 30 years.